Hey guys, so this time we'll be going over Hisham, and I know a lot of you might be thinking, really, this guy. This guy is one of the best supports in the game. Of all people, this guy. Well, not before his job plus, but after his job plus, he's nuts. Let's get into it. So, Kaigan, like always, gate 1 for stats. Always gate 1 for stats. As far as his gate 2 goes, though, you do not have to get this gate, really. Now, I decided to get this gate because it gives you an additional 20% HP, as well as 5 fire resistance and 5 water resistance on top of what you already had, obviously upgrading the pirate passive. Unfortunately, the agility does not get an upgrade, but as I'm sure you noticed, he does not really need it. So, as far as his Kaigan leader skill goes, though, magic power plus magic attack power plus 30, light plus 20. I mean, if you just don't do it. Run Aisha instead. Aisha is a much better leader skill. He's just not worth it, and there aren't any other really good light desert units that I can think of, if there even are any, that can actually benefit from this. And he is meant to be run in a desert team. Now, I know that I've said before, mono teams are the way of the future, mono team this, mono team that. Well, he doesn't necessarily have to be run on a desert team. He can really be run on any light team, but he does benefit being run on a desert team. And with the Nenso leader skills being an option, as well as they are, once the desert gets its turn in the sun and the desert Nenso leader skills become apparent, he might very well be run on a rainbow team from the desert, because he is an absolute insane support, probably even eclipsing that of Rahu. So, gear setup. Now, I've been over this before, and I'll go over it again. Bolt Nenso, Bolt Nenso, Bolt Nenso, Bolt Nenso. This thing is insane. That has that 50 damage modifier buff that is an AoE around, and because he is a desert unit, he can use it. He's a great way to put that buff onto your units like Bolt, or really anyone else, because you just need a desert unit to use it. You can use it on any group that you'd like. And I believe I showcased multiple times throughout the videos in raids, because he is very good at raids if you want to do them manually. If you want to max out your damage manually in a raid and you're using a light team, Hisham is the way to do that, at least before Black Killer Masamune becomes a thing. Once Black Killer Masamune becomes a thing, he kind of tapers off a little bit and isn't as useful per se, because it's the really long fights that Hisham shines in. Rahu is always going to be better in a short fight, but long term, Hisham is probably the best support in the game. Now, gear setup. I like the Desert Rabbit. Strie's Rabbit is a great option on him. It gives him 7 speed and 1 jump, which gives him 3 move and 3 jump, and allows him to effectively move around the map. And I think a lot of people just underestimate how great 1 jump is. It really can help you move a lot further faster, and can just make your play feel a lot smoother. Now, I do like to run the Saint Meteor on him. It will give him more jewel gain, as well as giving him the heal, but you don't necessarily need to run that on him. You can run anything you'd like. There really isn't a good gear setup for Hisham in general. Now, I have the Trapezohedron on him. Now, you don't have to run the Trapezohedron if you even have the Trapezohedron. Any HP will do. Teddy is a good option. Rainbow armor is a good option. You can't see my armor options right now because of how they changed the UI. For some odd reason, when you click on accessories, it drops you into the accessories tab, so you can't see the armors. Regen is always a great option, but generally speaking, you want that on your melee, not your support, because the support shouldn't be getting hit in general. If you're letting your Rahu and Hisham get hit, you should probably look into that. That's not supposed to happen like that. There is the VCR from the, what is that? That's the Lucian Nenso. And that will give him 500 HP along with some other stats, which is nice. I have that on my Neferti right now, and maybe I'll do a video on her once Desert Babel gets released. There really aren't many other great options for him, unfortunately, in terms of HP. Of course, there is the Rainbow Vita armor for floor 100, but... So instead of the Saint Meteor, another great option is obviously the Fujika VCR, and I know I say this a lot, Fujika VCR, it's just that good. really anything else. You could even run the crit pendant on him because that has a strike and slash resistance for the first 3 turns as well. Really any kind of good support gear. You don't have this yet. This thing's pretty cool. Maybe I'll do a video on that piece of gear someday. It's great for supports, because it basically, when you use this piece of gear, you're basically saying, I'm not going to do any damage whatsoever with this unit, and I'm going to make it a pure support unit. So this is a good thing to run on supports. I'd have to double check all the stats though, but it basically makes you immune to most kinds of count manipulation, as well as like dropping your damage by like half or something. But Hisham really doesn't do much damage to begin with. So, job setup. We're looking at his, he has Pirate and Crafter for his other jobs, so you're basically going to run the flat set of other jobs with the exception of the passives, where you're going to be wanting speed passives. So you grab Booster 1 from Crafter, as well as the, I forget what they call it in Global, but basically it's the Fire and Water Res speed passive from Pirate, which is your kind of upgraded skill. So, he really doesn't have that complicated of a setup, to be honest, and his kit is actually pretty straightforward. So this will not take that long to go over, because I have to make up time because I spent like 30 minutes making the Black Masa video. So, sorry about that. Let's get into his kits, and I'm going to... Who do I want to lead? Let's use Mela. Alright. So, I'm sure some of you know about the Hisham 100% collab. And, while I do have pictures of it, I am not going to be posting any of them because, 1, they're probably NSFW, and 2, I really haven't read much into the whole YouTube policy on these kinds of things, but basically he's butt naked and he's holding a plate over his you-know-what, so, and, he's basically, and if you were to watch him on the map right now, he would be shimmying back and forth, thrusting his stuff forward as he did so, and for anyone here who doesn't actually believe this happened, well, you're wrong, this did happen, it was hilarious, it was literally the best skin in the game, and if you want an idea of what it might look like, the Hisham 100% collab was based off of the Akira 100%, who is a comedian who goes on shows basically naked with nothing but a plate and does stunts with nothing but the plate, and he may have dropped it once or twice. So, I will also mention that there was one of Hisham's skills where he would take both hands off the plate, and I'm sure you can use your imagination. Alright, back to our PG-related programming. So, really, Hisham's kit has not changed much, except for the panels and this attack. So I'm just going to go and quick show off his attack, because it's different, and you obviously aren't going to have it. It comes in a line, it has a cast time, but the cast time is relatively quick, and I do not believe it hits allies. It does not do much damage. I mean, it will do some damage, but not much. So, here is where his kit makes him one of the best supports in the game. So, I cast out panels. Right? We have blue panels down on the ground. Now, normally, this would buff your physical attack or your magic attack in it slightly if you're standing in it. However, when Hisham does it, and you won't get to see it the first turn because it has to be up a... They have to wait while inside of there in order to gain access to the buff. And as you can see, Moa just got 20 joules. So, think about this, right? It might not be super apparent why this is so good, because you're like, okay, well, it's 20 joules. Well, first of all, you just spent 32 joules or something? And you can create a small cross, so that means you have 5 squares where your team can gain 20 joules a square. That means he essentially just shelled out 100 joules distributed across your entire team in a single turn. And if that wasn't good enough, think a little bit harder about this for a minute, right? How much does a charge up normally cost? Somewhere between 10 and 20, right? And how much do some range attacks cost? Probably somewhere between 20 and 30. So if you have a charge up that's about 10, and you have a range attack that's about 30, That's about 40. So literally, Hisham can change your charge up ranged units into mini turrets that can literally charge up and hit things across the screen. And this is just one of the many ways you can use this. It is actually freaking nuts what this can do. It really is hard to describe it because the thing about supports is that the power of a support is not readily apparent. And this was very obvious to me when originally when Minerva came out, and a lot of people were disappointed, and it didn't seem like she was as powerful for whatever reason, and that's because supports express their power differently. The support will not let one unit basically go ham. It's not a one for one. It's not like you trade in a support and one of your units becomes doubly as powerful. Instead, the way support power works is they kind of facilitate the team in general. It's like the lubricant of Taga. It will make your stuff run smoother and it'll feel less clunky. And in general, it can make you safer because it can do things like heal, which will effectively increase your HP. Just think about that. If you have 5,000 HP and you take 3,000 damage, and you have, let's say, Mieliki heal back that 3,000 damage, all of a sudden that unit effectively had 8,000 HP without regen armor, right? What else can they do? Clock up, right? Clock up and overclock. They can give other units extra turns. And, well, you might be thinking, okay, well, I basically traded one power unit so another can take 2 turns. If you're smart about how you use the count manipulation, you basically can get more than 2 turns out of it because you can effectively be where you need to be at all times, and you're also not burdened down with another unit that, let's say, might need a front line while getting hit by AoEs. Right? And in Hisham's case, what he does is he adds tempo. 20 joules, if you sit on there for 2 turns, even some of the worst joule gain units in the game, like Holy Brawlers and Snipers, if you ever use a sniper, but the point remains that a lot of these units that don't have great joule gain, Hisham basically A, fixes them, and B, he takes any unit and lets them go a lot faster. If you don't have to gather joules, you don't necessarily have to go into attack range. So I did not use Hisham for this, but on floor 110 or floor 112 of Neovita, I used Judith with the Fiona Nenso vision ability to cast Jewel regen in the area around my units. And I kept them in a corner where none of the units would proc aggro from the enemies. And by doing so, I managed to regain all of my jewels without having to go within range because there's literally nothing but archers on that stage. Archers and demons that can hit you from across the map. That floor 112 is the hardest Neovita stage, hands down. It's an insanely difficult floor, and by keeping into a corner and regenning jewels, just like you see here, it allowed me to effectively get in behind them and use skills right away without having to collect any jewels. What Hisham does and what he brings is absolutely invaluable, and let's not forget, he still has the other trick up his sleeve of having access to the Bolt Nenso vision ability. If I could even find, there it is. Right, so he can also up the damage of your units, and don't forget you're also getting a small physical attack or a magic attack buff depending on what you're doing. And I believe he has 3 casts of each, and while they do disappear eventually, right, you can basically flood the entire area you're fighting in with these things, and as long as you had the jewel gain buff on the turn and you make sure you end your turn on a jewel gain buff, you will always get more jewels, just like that. See how Moa was not on a square that had blue? But if I leave it like this, she should get jewels on the next turn that she moves. So this is what it's about. It's about the jewels. It's all about the jewels with Hisham. He is going to facilitate your entire team by literally pumping them full of jewels, and he does it way more effectively than Carol does. Because I'm sure a lot of you might have been thinking, well, Carol's a merchant, she can give other people jewels, and what Carol does is she can give them to them immediately. Well, basically it's like the difference between overclock and, clock up. So, if you want to play the long game, which is normally the more effective way, Hisham is the way to go. If you need 20 jewels, turn 1 to do something, use Carol. If you don't mind waiting 1 extra turn to get those jewels, use Hisham. I don't really have to explain much more why Hisham is much better than Carol. I have not used Carol once since Hisham got his job plus. And it's just because Hisham is just so much better. Now, is Hisham the best unit in the game? No. No, he is not. Not even close. In fact, there are a lot of times where I don't bring supports into a map, and there are some times when I do bring supports. But when I do bring supports, and my team is light, I normally bring Hisham. So, there really isn't much else to say on him at this point in time. He really doesn't use his other 2 jobs for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, Pirate is just not a good job unless it has the perfect amount of support for it. Like you need to have the right jobs, or you need to be Shenmei to use Pirate efficiently. And the only reason Shenmei gets away with not having great jobs to go with her Pirate is because she's a water unit, so she gets the double water on fire units for the extra damage, which by now you should all know is like top priority. Golmoraz gets away with it because he has the charge up with the AoEs and he has the job plus. So even though these skills are water damage, Gol basically just brute forces his way through anyways, and there is literally no other viable Pirate in the game that I'm aware of. I have heard of very, very, very select usage of Pirate Noah for a mono team for one of the crazy people in Discord who loves his Lupinus so much that he literally ran all of the floors of Mobius with Lupinus teams, and I believe he used a Pirate Noah in one of them. But in terms of general viability, there are no other viable Pirates. So, enough rambling from me. How would I rate Hisham? I would do 5-2-3 on his Kaigen. You're going to want a little bit of extra HP probably for endgame content, but it's not that big of a deal. He runs super fast. He's got 180 base speed, and once he hops into the map with the Bolton, so that goes up to like 200. And he's very fast. He's very good at what he does. Don't forget that that particular... I don't even remember what they call it in... Global, but the job that he has a veil on it, so there is that. So if you need a veil and you need jewels and you don't want to use Carol, or you want to use someone that's better than Carol, use Hisham. Now, as far as the aforementioned skin coming to global, I wouldn't get your hopes up. I unfortunately wasn't making videos back then, otherwise I would have footage of it, but I do not have footage of it. I only have pictures of just pure hilariousness. Unfortunately, Global will probably never get that skin. If you do, I will be surprised. As far as what happened to the skin, well, once the collab event was done, Hisham went back to his normal clothing instead of his better clothing for Hisham 100%. Which was unfortunate, and we still regret the loss to this day, but it is what it is. Thanks for tuning in as always, and I hope to see you next time, guys.